My name is Daniel. I'm 35 years old, and I work as a software engineer in Austin, Texas. For 6 years, I shared my life with Lisa, a woman I met at a tech conference who works in marketing for a local startup. At 33, she had that outgoing personality that complemented my more reserved nature. We were, at least on the surface, a couple that worked well together. From the beginning of our relationship, I took on most of the expenses. It wasn't sexism or control, it was simply practical. I made more as a senior developer, so I paid the rent for our 2-bedroom apartment in South Austin, the bills, her car payments, and funded our trips. Lisa always said she'd contribute more once her startup took off, but time passed and I remained the primary provider. It never really bothered me. After all, we were a team. I've always been an analytical person, someone who prefers to observe patterns before drawing conclusions. In my work, this helps me find complex bugs in code. In personal life, it taught me to pay attention to details that others ignore. And in the last 2 months, these details began forming a concerning pattern. Lisa started coming home later, always with the same excuse: long meetings, urgent projects, difficult clients. Her phone, which used to be left forgotten on the table, now lived face down. Her laughter became rarer. Conversations about our future plans simply disappeared. When I tried to bring up the subject, she'd deflect or say she was stressed about work. If you like stories of cold-blooded revenge and gripping plot twists, subscribe to the channel now. There are 2 new, unreleased stories here every day, and each one is more impactful than the last. As a developer, I learned that when a system starts showing random failures, there's usually a deeper hidden cause. The same applies to relationships, so without making a scene, I began taking some precautions. I discreetly transferred part of the funds from our joint account to a personal account I'd maintained for years. It wasn't paranoia, it was prevention. All the furniture in our house was registered in my name because I had bought it with my money over the years. I always kept receipts and purchase documents organized in a digital folder, a habit I developed since I started working independently. Back up everything, always. Last Tuesday in March, while I was in the home office working on a critical project, Lisa appeared at the bedroom door at 9 p.m. Without any preparation or prior conversation, she said, "Daniel, I need some time to rediscover myself. I think I'm lost and need to understand what I really want from life." The words came out of her mouth as if she had rehearsed them several times, coldly calculated. She continued, "It's not about you, it's about me. I need space to think clearly." When I asked if there was someone else involved, she shook her head firmly. "Of course not, Daniel. I just need time to find myself." I remained silent for a few seconds, processing the information. Inside, my instincts screamed that there was something deeper there. But outwardly, I stayed calm. "How much time do you need?" I asked. "I don't know," she replied. "Maybe a few weeks, maybe a few months. But I love you. I just need to figure out who I am outside this relationship." I said I would understand and respect her decision. Lisa seemed relieved by my mature reaction. She probably expected fights, tears, or begging. Instead, I gave her exactly what she asked for: space. But as any good programmer knows, there's always code running in the background, even when the interface seems quiet. The next morning, Lisa packed her bags with suspicious efficiency. She said she'd stay at a friend's house for a few days and then travel alone to clear her mind. When I asked where, she was vague. "Maybe to the coast. I need to see the ocean and think." I hugged her goodbye and wished her luck on her journey of self-discovery. Inside, my mental algorithms were already processing inconsistencies. In the first 3 days after her departure, I maintained my normal routine. I worked during the day, went to the gym at night, watched Netflix before bed. But my analytical mind couldn't completely shut off. There was something about the details that didn't add up. Lisa had mentioned seeing the ocean, but Austin is hours from any coast. Why be so vague about the destination if it was just a reflection trip? On the 4th day, the answer came through Jake, a mutual friend who works as a freelance photographer. He sent me a message at 2:30 p.m. "Dude, I need to show you something. Did you know Lisa is in Mexico? My stomach sank before I even saw the image he sent next. The photo showed Lisa and Brian, that work colleague she always mentioned as being just a friend from the company, embracing in an infinity pool overlooking the ocean. Both were smiling intimately, she wearing a bikini I'd never seen, he shirtless, clearly too comfortable to be just a colleague. The location tagged in the image said, Moon Palace Resort, Cancun, Mexico. Jake explained that a mutual friend posted the photo on Instagram and he recognized Lisa immediately. Sorry to have to show you this, man, he wrote, but I thought you needed to know. I thanked him for his honesty and said everything was fine, that I already suspected something. But everything wasn't fine. For a few minutes I felt that hot anger rising in my chest, that urge to call her immediately and explode. However, I took a deep breath and did what I always do when I find a critical bug in code. First, I analyzed the entire situation before implementing a fix. I opened my laptop and began investigating. I accessed our joint account online and reviewed the transactions from recent days. There it was, a charge of $2,047 at Moon Palace Resort, paid with points from my American Express card. Lisa had used my accumulated points to fund her romantic getaway with another man. The irony was almost comical, if it weren't so painful. I kept digging. I also found expenses at expensive restaurants in Cancun, a beachwear store, even a couple's spa massage. Everything paid for with the supplementary card I had given her for emergencies. Apparently, cheating on her boyfriend of 6 years qualified as an emergency. At that moment, a strange calm took over me. It wasn't resignation or despair. It was the same feeling I get when I finally find the line of code that's causing an entire system to fail. Absolute clarity about what needs to be fixed. Lisa had asked for time to rediscover herself, and I was going to give her exactly that. But in my own way. First, I called the bank and canceled her supplementary card, claiming it was lost. Then I transferred all the remaining money from the joint account to my personal account. It was about $8,500 that I had deposited over the months. Technically, the money was mine anyway, since I was the one making regular deposits. Next, I began making a list of everything that was registered in my name in the apartment. Leather sofa I bought at Ashley Furniture, was $200. Solid wood dining table, $800. Samsung 65-inch TV, $100. Refrigerator, microwave, washing machine, even the kitchen utensils. Everything had been bought by me with my money, and I had receipts to prove it. I spent the rest of the afternoon browsing Facebook Marketplace and Craigslist, calculating resale values. As a developer, I have a good eye for pricing and market demand. I discovered I could easily get between 60 to 70% of the original value of each item, considering everything was in excellent condition. On Friday, I called my boss and asked for a few days of remote work. I explained I was going through a personal situation and needed to resolve some practical matters. He was understanding. One of the advantages of working at a modern tech company is flexibility. The plan was forming in my mind with the precision of a well-structured algorithm. Lisa wanted time to rediscover herself? Perfect. When she returned from her honeymoon disguised as a spiritual journey, she'd have all the time in the world in a completely empty apartment to reflect on her choices. On Saturday morning, I put my plan into execution with the same methodology I use for deploying critical systems. Step by step, unhurried, testing each stage. I started by photographing all the furniture from different angles to create attractive online listings. My experience in interface design helped me create posts that highlighted the strong points of each piece. The leather sofa was the first to go. A young couple from North Austin came to pick it up the same day, paying $850 in cash. They commented on how pristine the furniture was and asked if I was moving. Let's say I'm doing a complete renovation, I replied with a smile. The dining table was sold to a Hispanic family who was furnishing their new home. I got $600 for it. The Samsung TV generated so much interest that I created a small bidding war, closing at $900. More than I expected. In 2 days, I had already made $2,350 just from the main furniture pieces. I continued methodically. Small appliances, kitchen utensils, even the ornamental plants that Lisa loved so much. Everything was priced and sold. I kept only the essentials: my work computer, clothes, some technical books, and my mattress on the floor of the main bedroom. The apartment was transforming into a minimalist version and echoed with every step. During this process, I received some messages from Lisa: sunset photos, vague messages about finding inner peace, and superficial questions about how I was doing. I responded politely, "Good that you're enjoying yourself. I'm doing well here, focused on work." She suspected nothing. On Tuesday, I called the building management and informed them I wouldn't renew the lease contract, which expired at the end of the following month. I explained I was going through personal changes and needed a smaller space. The secretary was kind and said she understood perfectly that changes are sometimes necessary. Next, I canceled all services that were in my name: internet, cable TV, water, electricity. I scheduled the disconnection for the following Friday, the day Lisa would return from her journey of self-discovery. The timing was perfect. I also found a modern loft downtown Austin, in a more vibrant area close to interesting restaurants. The rent was even lower than our current apartment, and the space, though compact, had an urban vibe that always attracted me. I closed the deal the same week. On Thursday, while organizing the final details of the move, I received an unexpected call from Brian. Yes, Brian himself from the Cancun photo. He said he needed to talk to me about a delicate situation and asked if we could meet for coffee. I accepted the invitation, curious to see how he would approach the subject. We met at a coffee shop downtown, away from our common social circle. Brian seemed nervous, constantly fidgeting with his hands and avoiding direct eye contact. "Daniel, I know this will sound strange, but I need to tell you something about Lisa," he began. "I didn't know you two were still together when she invited me to travel. She said she had broken up with you months ago and was single." I feigned surprise. "Really? She told me she was taking a solo trip for reflection." "Man, I feel terrible," Brian continued. "I only found out the truth when I posted a photo on my stories and some mutual friends started asking strange questions. Then I connected the dots and realized she lied to both of us." I thanked him for his honesty and said I held no grudge, since he had also been deceived. Brian seemed relieved and offered help if I needed anything. We parted cordially, but inside I was satisfied. Lisa's own lover was confirming my version of events. Friday morning, the apartment was completely empty, except for a suitcase with my clothes and my work setup. The walls echoed when I walked, creating an almost cinematic atmosphere. I rang the neighbor's doorbell and handed him an envelope with the spare key, asking him to deliver it to management. Before leaving definitively, I left a note on the empty kitchen counter. Not a long or dramatic text, just a phrase that perfectly summarized the situation. "Now you have all the time in the world." I took my suitcase and drove to my new loft. At 3:30 p.m., I received the first call from Lisa. I didn't answer. At 3:45 p.m., second call. At 4 p.m., desperate messages began. "Daniel, what happened to our apartment? Please call me immediately. I can't get in, there's nothing inside." At 4:30 p.m., my phone wouldn't stop ringing. Lisa was clearly panicking. I finally answered on the 10th attempt. "Daniel, what the hell happened? Where's our furniture? Where are our things?" she screamed from the other end of the line. "Our things?" I asked calmly. "Lisa, you asked for time to rediscover yourself. I thought it would be easier for you to do that without distractions. You sold everything. How could you do this to me?" "I sold my things, Lisa. Everything was in my name, bought with my money. You can check the receipts if you want." She started crying and begging, then switched to threats. She said she'd sue for abandonment, that she'd tell all our friends how cruel and vindictive I was. I listened to everything in silence, waiting for her to finish the show. "Lisa," I finally said, "you wanted time to find yourself. I just removed all possible distractions from your path. Now you can reflect in absolute peace." And I hung up the phone. After hanging up, I blocked Lisa's number on all platforms, text messages, Instagram, Facebook, even email. As a developer, I know the best way to prevent bugs is to eliminate invalid input sources. Lisa had become exactly that, a source of corrupted data that would only bring instability to my system. In the following weeks, I began rebuilding my life with the same precision I used to architect complex code. The downtown Austin loft became my new command center. It was smaller, but functional and modern. I bought only the essentials: a work desk, an ergonomic chair, a compact sofa, and a smaller TV. I spent approximately $2,800, much less than I had earned from selling the old furniture. I returned to the gym regularly, something I had neglected in the last months of the relationship. I resumed old hobbies like photography and began exploring Austin in a way I hadn't done in years. I discovered interesting coffee shops, bars with live music, even signed up for an Italian cooking class on Saturdays. It was liberating to make choices based only on what I genuinely wanted. Professionally, the change also brought renewed energy. Without the constant stress of a relationship that was crumbling, my productivity at work skyrocketed. I started working on a personal project I had shelved months ago, an application for personal financial management. Ironically, the recent experience with Lisa gave me valuable insights on how to create tools to protect people from vulnerable financial situations. 3 weeks after the incident, I received a call from Marcus, my lawyer. He said he had received a legal notification representing Lisa, alleging irregular division of assets and abandonment of home with material damages. He laughed when he finished reading the document. "Daniel, this lawsuit has no merit whatsoever," Marcus explained. "You weren't married, didn't have officially recognized common law marriage, and all assets were registered exclusively in your name. Plus, you have all the receipts and proof of purchase. It's easier to prove that water is wet." Even so, I meticulously organized all documentation. Purchase receipts for furniture, bank statements showing I was the sole depositor of the joint account, even screenshots of conversations where Lisa asked for time to rediscover herself and denied third parties being involved. As additional evidence, I had proof of her expenses in Cancun using my credit card points. The hearing took place in an Austin civil court 6 weeks later. Lisa appeared accompanied by a lawyer who seemed more nervous than she was. When the judge asked them to present evidence of common law marriage, they could only show some old photos of us together and vague allegations about emotional contribution to the relationship. Marcus presented our documentation surgically, receipts organized chronologically, bank statements highlighting my exclusive deposits, even a detailed report of Lisa's expenses in Mexico. The judge examined everything carefully and asked some direct questions. "Miss, can you present any proof that you financially contributed to acquiring these assets?" the judge asked. Lisa mumbled something about indirect contributions and emotional support. Her lawyer tried to argue about unjust enrichment, but the judge interrupted him. "Counselor, I don't see unjust enrichment when someone sells assets they bought with their own money and are registered exclusively in their name. What I see here is a relationship that ended and one party trying to appropriate assets that never legally belonged to them." The petition was dismissed entirely. Lisa still had to pay court costs. When we left the courthouse, she tried to approach, but I just shook my head and kept walking. There was nothing more to discuss. 2 months later, through mutual friends, I learned that Lisa had moved to Dallas, claiming Austin had too many bad memories. Brian, curiously, had also changed jobs in cities around the same time. Jake mentioned they probably continued together, but nobody talked about it openly. At the end of the year, I launched my financial management application. I called it Solo Vault, a tool for people who wanted to maintain complete control over their personal finances. The app included features to monitor shared expenses, alerts for suspicious activities on supplementary cards, and automatic backup of important financial documents. It was an unexpected success, reaching 50,000 downloads in the first 3 months. In January, I met Sarah at a tech conference in San Antonio. She was a product manager at an e-commerce company, 31 years old, and had refreshing transparency about her finances, goals, and relationship expectations. Our first conversation lasted 4 hours and included an honest discussion about past relationships, lessons learned, and red flags we had both identified in previous experiences. Sarah had an interesting rule: never mix finances until at least 2 years of solid, transparent relationship. "I've seen too many friends get complicated by being naive about money and relationships," she explained. I completely agreed. It was exactly the kind of emotional and financial maturity I had learned to value. Today, a year after this whole situation, I can say I've never been better. My apartment is organized exactly the way I like it. My finances are protected. My career is flourishing. And I'm in a relationship based on mutual honesty and healthy independence. Sometimes when I'm programming late at night, I reflect on this entire experience. Lisa did me a favor, though that wasn't her intention. She forced me to question patterns I had passively accepted, and taught me to value people who demonstrate integrity through actions, not just words. Revenge was never the real objective. It was about reclaiming my power of choice and proving to myself that I could emerge from a toxic situation not just intact, but strengthened. I learned that the best response to betrayal isn't drama or direct confrontation, but strategic silence and well-planned actions. If I encountered Lisa on the street today, I would probably greet her politely and go on my way. Not out of magnanimity, but because she simply no longer occupies mental space in my life. She's like a bug that was fixed and never caused problems in the system again. The most valuable lesson was learning to trust my analytical instincts in personal relationships too. When data shows inconsistencies, it's worth investigating instead of ignoring the signs. And when a person shows who they really are through their actions, it's important to believe them the first time. If you enjoyed this story, like, share, and leave your comment telling us what you thought. And if you're not subscribed to the channel yet, please subscribe and hit the bell to receive notifications of new stories like this one. Thanks for watching and see you next time.